So, elections are upon us, a civic duty that Jamaicans have upheld for many years. But how far back does this activity go? Let's dive in. Welcome to Behind the Ballot, pre-independence. We are going back to the 1600s. Yep, that far back, to the clash of empires. The British and Spanish were locked in a fierce battle for dominion over Jamaican soil. And in 1655, the British emerged victorious. Fast forward to 1660, the Jamaican colony was placed under British colonial protocols, meaning the island would be ruled by a governor handpicked by the crown. Power was firmly in the governor's hands. Next, there was the Legislative Council, the upper house, which consisted of members selected by the governor himself. Meanwhile, the lower house, the assembly, had members who were to be elected. Jamaica held its first election in December 1663, making it one of the earliest places in the New World to do so. But the voting requirements were seriously exclusive. You had to be white, male, 21 years or older, and own freehold property worth at least £100, or have personal assets of at least £300. Today, that would mean owning property worth at least £20,000 or 5 million Jamaican dollars, or having assets worth £74,000, around 15 million Jamaican dollars. In other words, you had to have money.
Brick pam, brick pam, brick.
How many of us would meet those requirements today? Well, back then, only a small fraction did. In the first general elections, about 300 white men were qualified to vote out of a population of 6,000 whites. And that was just for voting. High positions had even more layers of exclusivity. To be elected, you had to own freehold property valuing not less than £300, or a personal estate worth no less than £3,000. Today, that means owning property worth at least £74,000, or equivalent 15 million Jamaican dollars, or having assets worth £740,000, or 156 million Jamaican dollars. So to be elected, you had to be really rich. Then there were the local governing bodies, vestries, tied to the Anglican Church, dominated by, you guessed it, wealthy planters and merchants.
Money, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world.
You get the picture. To contribute to your nation's development, you had to have money. Meanwhile, Jamaican blacks, who made up a significant portion of the population, were completely excluded from the voting process and holding any positions of power. This stark inequality highlighted the deeply entrenched racial and economic divides of the time. Fast forward to 1830. Progress seemed to be on the horizon. Free mulattoes and blacks could vote. Then Jews were added in 1831. Then the big one, full emancipation in 1838. Finally, race was no longer a factor to vote. Liberation at last. So, democracy for all, right? Nope. Remember that financial requirement? Yeah, that still barred majority entry to the ballot box. Around 1865, the simmering discontent with the tyranny of minority rule finally boiled over. A rebellion led by Paul Bogle erupted in Morant Bay, fueled by the desire for change. However, hope took a dark turn Instead of progress, the British rule tightened its grip on the island, dissolving the assembly and vesting full power in the governor's hands. The seeds of change were not entirely lost. As time shuffled by, the Legislative Council underwent a restructuring, as a few elected members were added, marking what could only be described as a small step towards representation. Then another milestone was met in 1919. Women gained the right to vote. Race and sex were no longer restrictions. Except, of course, for that teensy-weensy, absolutely enormous, unmissable, little annoying requirement. Money. Amidst the economic hurdles blocking most from voting, a shot of hope arrived in 1929. Jamaica's first modern political party, the People's Progressive Party, was born. Formed by Marcus Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. The PPP's mission? The fight for everyone to be able to vote, universal adult suffrage, as well as political independence and a West Indian federation. The PPP made waves in the polls, snagging by-elections in Hanover and seats on the Kingston and St. Andrew Council, a party on the rise. However, the party's growth was cut short as Garvey was jailed for contempt of court, causing him to lose his council seat and his bid to gain a seat on the Legislative Council in 1930. Despite the setback, the demand for fairer voting simply would not be silenced. Then finally, it was achieved in 1944. Yes! The first election under universal adult suffrage was held on December 14, 1944. And the Jamaica Labour Party won the election and Sir Alexander Bustamante became majority party leader. What began in 1663 as a voting privilege for only a handful of wealthy white men transformed over centuries into a power currently enjoyed by all adult Jamaicans. This collective determination culminated in Jamaica proudly breaking free from British rule, achieving full independence in 1962.